Alrighty. Hey guys, welcome back to the Dating Doc TV. My name is Nadia and we have a returning guest here.
Hey, I'm Victoria.
Hi, look at her, nice little do here. She was just at a shoot all day and then she spared time to be on the podcast. So, just like the topic says today, we're going to be getting into why does Gen Z suck at dating, or why are they known as a terrible generation to date? And technically, we're considered in that category. So, you're in that category if you were born in 1997 and up to 2012. So anywhere between there, you're technically considered a Gen Zer. So we want to show you really quick. We like to get out into the community whenever we can. And we were recently at the Helotes 5K beer run. So we have a little video to show you guys of us, just a little snippet of us being there.
That's so cool.
What is your biggest dating pet peeve?
Bringing your ex-boyfriend on the date.
Definitely do the ghosting. Also do the ghosting, but I have been ghosted.
I've been ghosted, but it was because of some kinky shit, so it is what it is.
That was too funny of her response. I figured that people were going to be more compliant to talk and do interviews because, like I said, it was part of a beer festival intermined with the run. So, when you were done racing, you were free to get pretty much as much beer samples as you wanted.
Oh my gosh.
So, I had a few, but I definitely didn't have as many as some other people. I definitely ran the race and then I was like, oh my God, yes, I'm going to have some. But yeah, no, there was a lot of other people that they had several, and some of their comments were like, I'm going to do this because I already had a lot of beers, so I'm comfortable talking. And I'm like, okay, great. If you want to talk, then I want to totally get you on film and put you on.
Isn't that interesting, though, that people need alcohol or something to, get them out of that comfort zone?
I know. It's not for everybody. Like, I'm sure there's people that, that don't need any alcohol to just go ahead and start talking and be camera ready. But there is a large amount of people that do need alcohol or some kind of enhancer. And they're just like, yes, let me have that so that way I can become bubbly, or I can become, a second persona so they can talk.
I know. That's interesting. But mocktails are the way to do it.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that has been the most comfortable thing lately, is doing mocktails and sober dating. We talked about
sober dating
a while back.
Gosh,
sober dating. So we're getting into why is Gen Z, the generation that's just not it, right? When it comes to dating. And it's partially because, so this is why. So you can see these quick little stats here. So 75% of Gen Z are single, okay? And a lot of us are frustrated with the apps, okay? It also says that most of the time, people don't want to mesh with other people if they don't have a sense of humor that's equal to theirs. That's a really good point. And then the other thing is here, it says Gen Z is having less casual sex, so they're just not even getting to it. They're just whatever. They're just fine with being by themselves.
Okay, so it is it's not having casual sex, they're being more careful about who they're sleeping with, or
essentially. So I'm not saying everybody, but some.
Oh, okay.
But some. And then the last thing here is that most of the time on first time dates, they're willing to spend about $100 on a first date, and then 1 in 3 spends up to $250 or more per month on dating, in general. So I was like, so that's what we got there. So those are just some quick stats if you're unfamiliar with the Gen Z audience. That's what we got right there. So why is Gen Z terrible at dating? Well, let's see right here. So this is what Google says, right? This is what lots of people's thoughts and research put into this. This is what they say. So it was like I was saying earlier, the humor part. It says this is a major issue with Gen Z with the humor. It's if I have a dry sense of humor and you don't, that's really, really that's a bad way to start off. It's a bad way to start off right there, because then I might crack a joke and you might be already offended or put off, and that I might be laughing and you're like, wow, that's actually really not funny to me. And for me, it might go over my head because you're just oh, well, it's not funny to me. And I'm like, well, it's funny to me.
Yeah, I can see that. I've definitely had some dating occasions where that's been the case. So I can see that. If you're not compatible like right away with the humor, the sense of humor, I mean, it all ties down to the personality too, you know, and then it's just you're just not gonna mesh right. You
I know. I feel like that's just like already starting off on the wrong foot, right? When it comes to that humor aspect, whether it's like intentional or unintentional, like that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So the next thing here is lack of communication. It says Gen Z would rather break up over a text more than any generation. And I was like, I feel like a lot of people have been there, you know, where it's just like this also goes into that they want to avoid confrontation.
Oh my goodness gracious, I know.
That's the biggest thing there. And I was like, I think that is a big factor. Is like a lot of people are just like, no, I'd rather just, you know, break up with you over text because I want to avoid actual like face-to-face interaction with you. And that's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I've seen it more oftentimes than not these days where somebody's asking me for advice and they just beat around the bush. I'm like, what is wrong with sitting in front of the person and communicating your issues to them so you can have them face to face?
Exactly.
So,
But-
yeah, that's definitely an issue nowadays.
So then this ties into what we're just talking about. So fear of commitment too. It's like
yeah.
Gen Z would rather things not be labeled or never official.
Oh, yes.
And I feel like that is the issue that we run into here with the
This is so accurate. Like,
with
what?
the like we don't like we want to casually date, but we don't want to date for real.
Right. Yeah. But then if you're dating or casually dating that person can't really go see other people, but you don't want to commit to that person and you don't want to like label it. But then they
Exactly.
still get mad because y'all aren't official,
Mm-hmm,
but you have free range. And then they go out and date and then they're like, oh no, I don't like this.
exactly. So they're just thinking like, well, you know, we've been like casually dating, you know, or we think that we're dating. So it's like if we're on the same wavelength, kind of, then they're like, oh, that's fine. But then the moment you're like, oh, I want to say like
Mhm.
I'm actually dating you to someone else, and they're like, no, stop right there.
Yeah. Mhm.
They're like, stop right there. They're like, you're not gonna make it official. You're not gonna, you know, speak that into existence. And you're like, but
Mhm.
why? We've been doing, you know, the dating things already. And it's like, oh, actually, I don't want to go out in public. Don't hold my hand.
Mhm.
Don't say that we're actually dating for real.
Mhm.
And then that's when things get misconstrued, and then it just becomes really complicated, and then it can turn into a toxic path, also, essentially.
Yeah, I think, you know, I just gave one of my really good guy friends some advice on this. He's been having trouble with that, like having just a casual thing, but then, you know, they grew feelings and then he was like wanting to take it to the next step and she wasn't ready, but you know, then again, like, okay, she wasn't ready. So then he started talking to other girls, but then it got like into like a whole thing because he was talking to other girls, but they weren't committed, you know? And like, it just starts off on the wrong foot. Like, I feel like you have to be like right off the bat respectful, like really set your boundaries, really be intentional. And if you're not intentional, if you're not doing that, then you should probably not be dating. Like, you should probably not mess with somebody's heart like that, you know? And you just start off on the wrong foot, and you always want to start off like respectfully with boundaries, great communication. And if it's like all in or nothing, you know, you should know like right off the bat, okay, I want to be serious with this person or I don't want to be serious with this person.
Right. But I feel like sometimes people, they have a hard time with that. Like, they don't know automatically that that's what they want. And
I
that's
know,
why
but that's
they just jump in and they're like, well, we're just going to be casual-esque and we're just going to see where it goes. And if it goes somewhere good, then it goes somewhere good. And if it doesn't, it doesn't, you know? And I feel like
Yeah.
that's the tricky part, because it's like, who's to assume and who's in the right and in the wrong of, you know, you said this, I said this, but I feel this, you feel that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where it gets a little tricky. And then it's just like, well, you said what you said, or, you know.
Right.
So that is definitely the biggest
Mm.
one. And the last one here that we have for why is Gen Z terrible at dating? The last thing here we have is the lack of reality. So I know this one is definitely like might come as a shocker, but maybe it doesn't, because we grew up with the most technology, the most social media, like, than any other generation. So because of that, we're making our own false narratives in our head with what we expect in dating, what we expect to happen, what we want to happen versus what's actually happening in real time. You know, like I could be creating this fantasy of like, I'm talking to this guy and I think we're hitting it off really well. And I think we're going to have a fairy tale ending because social media is like, oh, well, if he does this for you and if he does this for you, that means all the stars are aligning and everything's working out, and then the next thing I know, I say something or I text him something and then he's like, oh, we're not a thing, or we're not like that, or we're never going to be exclusive.
Right.
like that kind of thing. And it's like, wow, like I thought this was going to become something,
I know.
and it's like social media in that aspect doesn't help because, like I said, it could be one of those things where I'm looking into it and it's like, oh, well, social media says you're doing fine. It means you guys are like romantically aligned. It means that you guys are, you guys are compatible.
Right.
It means if he's doing this and he's doing that, that means that you guys are going to be awesome together, and then it turns out that it actually didn't work out that way. So I think that's part of it, this lack of reality that sometimes happens. I'm not saying it's in everyone, but it's in most of them for sure. Or most of the Gen Z generation. And I was like, so I know that was like a lot to swallow, right? Like that was like, those are just the biggest things of why people feel like it's very, I guess you could say, difficult or challenging to date Gen Zers. Okay. And we're both in that category too. So, like I said, if you were born from 1997 all the way to 2012, you are considered in the Gen Z category. So, like I said, I was like, I'm not saying that it's difficult to date people in that category, but we just have the worst, rep compared to other generations. We're the ones that are like, we're very, we're very picky, or we rely on social media. We want validation, or we want this, or we want that, or we're like first to assume right away in different types of situations and scenarios. And I feel like that's what puts us in the situation of like, why are we like the worst category? Quick story here. There was someone who's older that was trying to date someone younger in this Gen Z category. And he was saying how he was not sure that he would ever do it again because he invited this person over for dinner. And she was like, oh, and they were trying to have a conversation, just like normal people. And he was like, he got really turned off by when she said, oh, wait, I need to grab my iPad really quick. Like, I just have to have something on in the background because, like, I grew up, in that, Gen Z.
She was an iPad girl.
She was an iPad girl. That's exactly what she said. That's like exactly what she told him. She was like, I grew up, like, being tied to my phone, being tied to my iPad.
Horrible.
So she was just, like, kind of, like, zoned out. And he was like, I prepared this, like, steak-ass meal, everything. And then he was like,
she's like, let me get
I
my
know.
iPad.
And then she's like, wait, pause. Like,
wow.
You're talking, but I have to have my iPad out on the side, and it just has to like have something on in the background. And I was like, oh my God, if that was me, I was like, I would be turned off too. I'd be like, wow, I made you this entire meal.
Honestly,
and then,
if it was a guy doing
and then
that,
you were just like, no thanks.
No,
like I would
flag.
be out too in that moment. Like I would be like, that's enough. I'd be like, okay, you clearly don't know how to communicate.
Yeah.
So that doesn't, that's not gonna work well with me. I was like, if you need your iPad at every single moment, it's like, do you need your iPad like to go to the bathroom? Do you need your iPad to what if it's a wedding? Like you're like, oh, but I need my iPad. And it's like it's a wedding. Oh my God.
But you know what I found? It's that codependency from that safety. Like that generation, our generation, like some younger ones, it's the safety of having like an iPad or an iPhone or something, like just playing, you know what I mean? Like they just need it in their hands.
Yeah, it's some kind of like safety
like it's
net
a
of some
binky.
sort.
It's like a blankie for them. And it's just like because technology became so big in that, I guess, era. And then on top of that, it's like COVID hit and everything. So it's just been like that. So that's their security. And it's sad.
Exactly. It's like the security that you need but don't need, right? It's like, how long can you live without your phone? How long can you live without Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes I feel like that kind of disconnect is important. Like, it's like, you don't have to be on your phone all the time. You don't have to always be on the Wi-Fi connection, stuff like that. But, other people might think differently, So while we were at the 5K, bouncing back to the 5K moment, that's when I was able to get some content to put on the pod this week. Okay. And this week I was asking people, so I didn't want to like just jump in with a question of like, why are we terrible at dating?
Mhm,
So I
mhm.
told him, have you ever been ghosted? Do you do the ghosting? And then, it just elaborated from there. So these are some of the things that they had to say after they ran, after they had
It's only
to
because I've had a lot of beers. So I'm doing this first.
Okay, do you guys do the ghosting or have you guys been ghosted?
I do the ghosting.
I mean, I think, let's be real. I've definitely have done the ghosting, but I've also been ghosted.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, it's even. It's even probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, have you ever been ghosted or do you do the ghosting?
A little of both. It actually depends on the conversation. If they're not very good at holding a conversation, then why do I want to meet you in person? There's really no point. If we can't have a good conversation, if you don't match well, if you don't understand my personality, if I can't blend with yours because you don't want to talk, then what's the point? So, a little bit.
Exactly. Thank you.
Have you guys ever been ghosted or do you do the ghosting?
Definitely do the ghosting. Also do the ghosting, but I have been ghosted.
I've been ghosted, but it was because of some kinky shit. So it is what it is.
I had to put her back in there because she was too funny. But yeah, so that was, some real time answers. And, so then I want to go into, following up with what they were saying. These are also real person answers. Okay, so these are not AI answers. What I'm about to show you is real person answers. When I ask them, why does Gen Z suck at dating or why are they terrible at dating? So these are real people's responses. And I feel like some of these answers are going to be very, very detailed and they might shock one way or the other. But this is what real people said. And these are all people that are between the age of, I would say, anywhere from the 20s to the mid 30s. These were their answers. And it's
Okay.
both a mix of males and females that I asked. So it's a pretty even response. So this person said, he put, I don't know, LOL, people want what they can't have, so they keep constantly trying to search for that. I'm sure people are so scared of commitment too. So I was like, this is a good answer. And it also ties into everything that we said too. So I was like, and a lot of these people are also talking from experience. They're talking from yes, this has happened to me before. And I think almost all these people were single too. So they're giving me even more raw answers
Right.
because they're single. Because
Right.
if they were probably dating, then I feel like their answer would be a little nicer. But these people are definitely giving me raw answers right here, right? So and I see this in people all the time. It's really sad. I always see people who get their hopes up and then their hopes are just shut down because I'm not saying that we have to have our standards extremely high, but it's one thing when you're pretending it's a fantasy and you're trying to live a fantasy. And then when your heart gets broken or your ideas get shut out, at that point, when I come in as a support friend, I'm like, okay, but everything that you're saying, it wasn't real. That wasn't actually happening. And I hate to be that person, but sometimes I try to help my friends out. I'm like, I'm trying to snap the reality back into you.
Yes.
It's it's one thing to go around the bush about it or about anything. But when it comes to that, heartbreaks, heartaches, I definitely try to be as real as I can with my friends. Cause I was I just want to tell them look, this is the truth. This is what's happening looking from the outside in, right? Because you get a different perspective when I'm looking from the situation and a different point of view, right? Versus if I was actually in it. So I try to, help them realize that. And sometimes it hurts, it's happened to me too. That hurts. I don't always want to hear the for real truth.
Right.
What was really happening to me, what was actually going on. It's I want to believe that it was perfect and it was gonna work out and all this stuff. But sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay. But this is also why that ties into why are we terrible at dating? Because we try to fetch out stuff that's not there or not real or what we're, essentially imagining. So this person said, he was I don't think I've ever dated a Gen Z, but I will say that I have noticed the younger generation, not only are they much softer and get easily offended, they give up too easily also. So, and this person said, and I feel bad for, the much younger generations younger Gen Z, because they've been so influenced by television and the internet and, they stray far from reality and they seem to forget what really matters. So this is also, what we're talking about earlier too. And this is also what I see in some people, it's they're just trying to always find an escape of some sort. And from that escape, they create this false reality of like, this is what I think is happening. This is what's going on in my head,
Mhm.
but that's not what's happening in real life, right? And it's just
Yeah.
like, that's the hard part. It's like, how do you get someone to get out of that bubble? How do you get someone to get out of that fantasy bubble and be like, no, Nadia, this is what's really happening.
Right.
It's like, how do you get someone out of that? Sometimes it's hard because sometimes they're like so sucked into what is not real and they want to believe that it's real so bad. And it's like, how do I pull that person out? And it's like, you guys have to keep spitting out the truth until finally, guess what? They believe you because they finally realize what's happening in the situation. Why? Because of some kind of heartache or heartbreak. And that's the only time that reality ever gets broken. Very rarely have I ever seen that fantasy scope get broken before that point. Because when you're in that moment of, you know, like puppy love, or you think that this is what's happening, that's what you're set on, and that's what you think. Like, that's all you think about.
Right.
You're thinking like, this is perfect, this is awesome, he's awesome, she's awesome, like, and that's where you're stuck there. And everything else, like all the red flags or anything that might be happening outside, is just like going over your head. This is what it's doing. So you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about, wow, this is perfect right now. There is no red flags, no matter what anybody says. Even if it was your best friend telling you or your mom telling you, you'd be like, no, I know what's happening. I'm good. Until the fine line of heartbreak. And then you realize, wow, I should have listened. But it's happened to everybody, right? I was like, unless it hasn't, because I actually met some people last week that said they have never been in any kind of toxic relationship. And I was like, either you're lying or you're lucky.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're lying or you're lucky. So then this one says, Gen Z is terrible dating because right away they want to throw around terms like narcissistic, or they get too clingy. Oh my gosh. Or it seems like the grass is greener somewhere else. And so this person's saying that right away they're quick to judge, is essentially what this person's saying. So they're saying like they easily judge if you're, you know, if they think that you're narcissistic, if they think that you're just a negative person, or they're just like not ready for you. In your experience, do you feel like you judge people very quickly, or do you give it some time?
I mean, I don't think I judge people. I just can feel when we're automatically not compatible.
Like you feel that right away?
I have been, yeah. Like
I feel like that's a good trait to have, though, like to know right away that you're just like, yeah, it's not going to work out up like past this.
Well, on top of that, I feel like I've been doing so much work on myself, and I've gone through so many journeys of different types of healing. And granted, we're all like never done healing, but I've really put in the work, and I can just feel when somebody is at that maturity level, like because of the types of conversations or because of the types of questions, if they can even hold, you know, a conversation like that young man was saying earlier, you know, if
Yeah, I feel like a lot of
hold-
people can't have the conversation.
Yeah.
That's the sad part. That's the sad part, is that a lot of people can't hold a conversation. And it's like, I feel like that is like a pivotal moment, like in any person's dating journey or even friend journey, is that if you can't hold a conversation, then what? You know, it's like,
well,
it can
anybody
always be
can hold a
one-sided.
conversation because you could be talking and talking and talking, right? But is there meaning and value to that conversation? Is there positive perspectives? Is there that positive disagreement, you know, that you can go back and forth and, you know, it's working towards something, you know, they're not just talking to be talking and talking and talking.
Oh,
Like,
I've definitely met a lot of people like that who just talk to talk. And I'm like, wow, this is going nowhere, because you're not, like you said, you're not adding any value to the conversation that could lead it into other things. Instead, you're just like, you're talking to talk, and it's like, what are you even talking about? Like, I forgot what I even initially told you, because now you're just like stacking it on with all these other things, right? That's definitely one of the things too. It's like, sometimes I feel like in that moment, some people just can't have a conversation. And I mean, that's them. It's not everybody, you know. This one person said, because they have no idea how to communicate in real life, it's all TikTok and social media comments speak.
like that girl at the gym. Who's that girl at the gym? Because I know that's not us at the gym.
That's definitely not at us. Okay, it's definitely not at us.
Like, who's that girl at the gym?
But that's really funny though. That is a good point. Like that could have been directed at us. That's pretty funny. But this person was telling me, like long story short, that he was at the gym and he was offering what he had like on his plates machine, something like that. Like he was just gonna like transfer it to her essentially. Like he was like, "Oh, I'm done using this machine and I have all these plates on it already. Like I'm offering it to you so that way you don't have to put all the plates back on. Like you can just take it from here." And apparently he was like, something must have been lost in translation because she just looked at him and she was like, "Ew, no." And he was like, he said he was like so struck in the moment. He was like, "I was just offering her like my piece of equipment so that way she wouldn't have to rack all those like heavy 45s on the leg press herself." And she just straight up was like, "Ew, no." And then he said afterwards when he left, what she did on the leg press that was right across from it, she just put the same amount of weight on the leg press. So she just, I don't know. So I guess she must have heard something wrong, or she just genuinely didn't want to use that piece of equipment. I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny considering like he was just trying to be nice and offer like, "Hey, like you don't have to do that work. I'm going to do it for you. Like just take mine." And she was like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, that's awkward." I was like, that's awkward too, because I was like, if that was me, like in that situation too, where I was like offering it, but like to a guy instead, and I got that same reaction, I'd be like, "Excuse me?" I'd be like, I was just trying to be nice and like offer a kind gesture, So that was interesting. I was like, oh man, I feel bad for you. I was like, but that is a prime example of why sometimes male or females like don't want to approach anybody because they're just, some people are really quick to judge, or like this person, she was just like, "Ew, no." And I was like, if that was me too, yeah, that would have been an extreme turnoff. Like, he wasn't like he was trying to do anything with her. He was just like, "I'm offering you this piece of equipment already stacked with the plates." And I was like, oh, yeah, that would make me feel kind of awkward too. And I'd be like, okay, awkward. All right, we have one more answer here. So, why is Gen Z terrible at dating? This person said, because the country's economic state does not allow young people to live outside of busting their ass. Also, unresolved generation trauma felt by the young generations doesn't give full accessibility to true vulnerability needed for intimacy. Wow, that's a mouthful. But I think those statements are both true. I have witnessed that in different people, that some people just don't want to date right now because they're like, dating's expensive. They're like, dating costs a lot of money. And Gen Z is actually the only generation that believes in like equal, meaning they take turns paying or they always split the bill. And I actually saw a funny article about like splitting the bill the other day. It was like, it was a little poll that was talking about if a guy tells you to split the bill on a first date, like, how does that make you feel, right? And a lot of people were like, not good, right? That was some of the article. And it was also saying like, there was a meme that came out of it that was like, if a guy tells you to split a bill on the first date, there's a high chance that he doesn't want to see you again. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought about that. But I was like, yeah, let me think about it again. I was like, that's never happened to me. But I was just thinking about like, okay, if I was in that situation, is that how I would feel? I don't know if that's how I would feel. I think I would be lying if I said that I wouldn't be shook if he was like, "Oh, let's split it." I'd be like, "Oh, okay." Especially if he did extend the invite, because usually the person who invites is the one who should pay. At least that's always how it's been, like, that I understand.
I had one occasion where I was invited out, and I think it was like at the end, I'm very much for paying my own bill, but this person, like, I really didn't find compatible with me. And so I was like, yeah, well, like the person brought the check and then they were like, is it going to be 1 or 2? And I was like, 2 checks, right? And he goes, oh, like, you didn't have to, like, I got you. And I was like, no, I got it. But then, like, he didn't fight me on it, And then I was like, look, listen, like, if you're inviting me out, I mean, I would have expected you to like pay for it, but I grew up in that culture where it was like the man always pays, or
Right.
you know, if you're going to get invited, like you say, like that's the person that's going to pay for you, because, you know, what if that person doesn't have, you know, the means to go out right now on a dinner, right? Like if
Right.
that's me, if I don't have sufficient funds to go out on a dinner, I'd rather just not go, because if that's going to happen to me, I want to make sure like I'm going to be able to pay for it,
So
right?
you'll
And I'm
politely
not,
decline in that sense.
yeah, and I'm
Okay.
not just going out to use that, you know, to have like a meal or something. Like I just have found so many girls that literally will go on like multiple dates a day for like meal 1, meal 2. I'm like, how do y'all do that? I don't understand how girls do that. I'm not the person that has been like the asker. How do you say? Like, you know, I just don't require a lot, and I don't ask for things. I know there's girls
That is crazy.
they do.
I know that there's girls that do that too, but I was like, I feel like that's a lot of effort to even be able to put together.
Well, they don't have anything to do. They probably don't have jobs, you know, like they're
yeah,
just,
that's probably it too.
it's,
I know.
yeah.
Not trying to like single anybody out, but usually those people are
But-
the ones that usually don't have a job, so they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go out here. I'm gonna do breakfast
Just
with
saying.
him, breakfast, you know, and lunch and dinner. Yeah, not trying to single anyone out, but usually 9 times out of 10, that's usually that kind of person. It's
Mhm.
very rare that a working woman or a working man would do that, especially on their day off. Like probably on their day off, they want it to be a day off.
Mhm.
Like they
Mhm.
probably wouldn't be that invested in like, let me go on 6 dates.
That's me.
They'd be like, that's
Like,
a lot
on my
of
day
effort,
off,
and that's
I
a lot
have-
of work.
Like a stack of things I want to do.
Exactly. That's too crazy. I was like, but you know, all these answers were very, very valid, and all these answers were definitely like
Accurate.
they were accurate, and people definitely had a lot of things to say. Those people
Mhm.
definitely put some heart into their answers. So thank you to everyone who participated in giving an answer. That is crazy. Oh, this person said if things are centered around you, it's probably a little easier to do. What do you mean? This is what this person said.
Playa 1258.
He said if things are centered around you, it's probably easier to do. Are you talking about like the people that go on like 6 dates a day? Is that what you're getting at? If that's what you're getting at, that I can see that.
I don't know. We'll have to get some more clarification.
I know.
So we
I'd
can
have to
touch
get-
up on that topic.
For women to go on multiple dates. Okay. So that's what he's saying. Okay. So are you saying that if people are more, I guess, full of themselves, narcissistic, that this is what the behavior that they would maybe tend to? That's what I'm assuming that this person is trying to say, which I think is a very fair and valid point, I would say. But yeah, I've never been the one to do that, but I've definitely known people that have done that. And I'm just like, oh my God, how and with what time? And that's a lot of energy exhausted out. You know, it's one thing to go
Yeah.
out and be social all day. And it's another thing to do that with potentially 6 different women or 6 different men. Like
Mhm.
that's literally insane to me. Like I don't think that I could ever do that comfortably. Can you imagine if the times ever overlapped? You're like, oh, meet me here, and this person's also going to meet me at the place like right across the street.
Oh no.
Did you ever think about that? I feel like that would be my concern, to be like, okay, well, man number 1, meet me here, and then man number 2, meet me here, technically just across the street, so I don't have to go far. And then, you know, it's like, what if you run into those 2 different
I don't
people?
know.
Like, I don't know. I feel like that's definitely not a self-esteem booster for males. If you're going out with males and they like saw that cross, like, I was just with you and now you're going to go with, okay. Like, I just think that's literally insane. But, you know, for some people, that's totally okay, and that works out for them. So, you know, good for them. Alrighty, okay, this is the time of the night where I'm going to remind you guys, okay, so we have our next speed dating coming up. It's going to be for the older crowd between 40s and 50s. It's going to be at Scoozies, okay? And then also right after that, just by the way, you can always scan that QR code at the very top, so that way you can get those tickets on our Eventbrite. And then right after that, we do have the the social wine mixer for singles. Okay, this is a little bit younger, so between 20s and 30s, aka maybe a little bit of Gen Zers, millennials in there. So you can go get your ticket on Eventbrite, and we'll see you at the next one. This is also the time when I remind you guys that we love for you guys to support the podcast, keep it running. We do have different donation tiers. You can scan the Venmo at the top. Okay, we have different incentives for different tiers. Alrighty. Okay. Do you have anything else you would like to add, Victoria?
On what topic?
Everything we mentioned today. I really liked that last one about like crossing over between like potentially trying to do like 6 dates. Like I think that's insane. Like I don't even know that I could find
No,
the
I don't
time
wanna
in my
touch up
day
on
to.
that one.
I could never. I was like I couldn't even imagine trying to like fit that in with my like workout schedule. I couldn't imagine. It's like go teach, go on a date, go teach, go on a date.
Yeah.
Like that would be literally insane. And like I don't have time for that. I was like,
Yeah.
but all is to say is that we're just bringing it to light that this is what's happening in the Gen Z area of dating, right? Where we might lack communication, we might lack fear of commitment, we might not be ready for all those kinds of things, or maybe we have financial strains that don't necessarily give us the means to go out comfortably dating.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those topics that you mentioned just ties back to, are you being your whole self? Like, have you done the work to just feel complete within yourself? Like, do you really understand yourself? Do you really understand your love language? Do you really understand how your body type works? Like, perspective, like mentality. You have to just figure out who you are so then you can just be more mindful of that person that you're going to hold space for. And you also have to clear yourself from all the different people, that you have kind of stranded, like here and there. Oh, I'm just going to have this one, for the weekend, or I'm going to have this other guy for going with my friends or something like that. Like, no, if it's not serious, take them out of your life completely and focus on yourself, and the right person will come. Like, hold space for that, because that is just blocking the energy from the right person to come along. And I have been doing that lately. Like, I had to cut off a couple people. I'm like,
You're like, oh my God, no, multiple people, no.
it's been like two.
Well, it's funny too, because
two.
the same person's asking us, how do dates go for us typically? You want to elaborate on how a typical date goes for you? You're the special guest here. You can elaborate all you want.
Well,
Give us some insight. What happens?
let's see.
Or you can give one example.
I have not been on a date in a really long time.
Okay, but define date, meaning that this is like a real deal date, or this is like I'm just getting to know you date.
I mean, it should be I'm getting to know you date, right? Because it's the real deal.
Okay.
Is there a difference?
There could be a difference, as in a casual meetup. Like you're not really intending that this was going to go far until you meet this person.
Oh, well, if I'm intending it's not going to go far, I'm not going to have you on a date. I'm not going to meet you.
Ooh, so you're not even going to like.
I'm not going to entertain you.
Yeah, you're not going to entertain the
Like,
idea.
I just-
Like you're just going to stop right there. Stop right there. Or we're not going past that.
Like, we have to be more intentional with our time, with our values, with our morals.
That's very important.
So for me, if I do go on a date, I'm trying to do like a clean slate here, because I haven't gone on dates because they haven't worked. It's usually been like dinner, drinks, and then like, okay, that's it. But then it's like usually just so awkward. Like, it's the first date, so awkward. Like, you're in this interview process and you're just like not 100% comfortable. So for me, I would like to do something out of dinner. And then dinner, you're sitting down to eat a meal. You have a mouthful. How are you going to communicate that to the person?
That's true.
start
It's like,
talking.
oh, tell me your life story.
Yeah,
as
and
I
then
just
you're
like
like-
slurp up the spaghetti.
Yeah,
Like,
seriously. Like, go on a walk. Go like,
these are some good suggestions, considering that you can get out of the typical dinner or date kind of thing. So I was like, so I know you were saying you haven't dated in a while, but how did the last date go for you? And he said, yeah, first impressions suck, feels just like an interview. Yeah, and that was one of the other things that one of the people that I asked to answer, they said that too. They were like, it always feels like an interview. It feels like 1,000 questions. They want to know like your life story, your traumas all right away. And it's like, I mean, I get you wanting to get to know and absorb as much as you can from someone on a first date initially, right? But I feel like when you come at them with all these kinds of like, you know, interview style questions of like, well, what do you do? And blah, blah, blah. And like, who are you? And what do you do? You know, like, I feel like sometimes it can be overwhelming especially when it's just a date number one.
I think you should just automatically go into bonding time, which people have not been doing lately. Like bonding as to, like I said, like going on a walk, letting it flow naturally, like letting it just come to you, like not necessarily those typical questions, just bonding time. Do you feel comfortable with the person doing the things you like? And I recently had this as an advice, you know, bring them onto your life. Like everything that I do, like a Sunday, like I'll go to a workout and then church, and then I'll go shopping, grocery shopping, and then maybe I'll go like for another run, and then laundry, or just kind of chill at home. Like invite them to your life, your lifestyle, and just see if they're compatible with that. And then that way you have some bonding time. Like whether that is going to the store and, oh, I need, I don't know, some dinner plates. Let's go look for some dinner plates. Like, I don't know, just more bonding time and less
that would
interview
definitely
time.
be a bonding time. And I feel like if someone is down to go to the store with you to find some dinner plates, they're definitely actually interested in getting to know you for real. Minus the interview style questions. I was like, I've never heard of that before, but I also heard, you can let me know in the comments if this is something that you would change or stop doing. But someone also told me that they think movies on a first date or in the first date in general is not good.
I just
okay, how do you feel about that?
No, I didn't just have that, but like I just had that person tell me right now, like he was
he offered
so in my bridal, I was doing a bridal shoot, right? And then one of the other grooms, a model that we were shooting with, we kind of like hit it off. We had a good chemistry. And he's like, hey, like, let's go out, like, let's continue the conversation. But I was like, I can't, gotta do a podcast right now. So the conversation came about of like, you know, what do first dates look like for you? Because I was like, listen, I haven't been on a date in a while. Like, I don't know if I really want to go out. And he's like, yeah, like, what do you consider a date? And I was like, well, definitely not like dinner. And he's like, yeah, right. And like, definitely not like movies, because like movies, it's dark and it's like, you're not even holding a conversation. You're just watching there. Like, you're just, yeah. So not movies either, you know, like, I don't know, do something creative. Like go on a cooking, what is it called? Like a cooking lesson class.
Oh my gosh.
Go on
These are some really
class.
Creative ideas. I was like, I haven't thought about those either. But yeah, I didn't really think about
that. Go to Nadia's Pilates class.
I actually did do that to someone once. I invited them out to try it. That was funny. And I was like, but it's just, yeah, a lot of people do movies to start. Why? I don't know. But
there's no reason,
but I get it now. Like I didn't get it like several years ago, but I get it now. Like how going to the movie, especially if it's date number one,
yeah,
I get how it's totally not going to be worth either, you know, like both respective parties' times. Because if you just like, okay, you meet there, right? Let's say you don't even get picked up, you just meet there, and then you kind of talk for maybe, let's just say 15 minutes max. Movie plays, movie's over, and then what? It's like, let's just say you went in the evening. What if it's like 10, 11 p.m. and you're like, okay, well, I have to go to work. So
yeah,
bye.
and
then there was no conversation.
And you're probably going to fall asleep in the movies, because if you had a long day at work, you're probably going to fall asleep in the movies.
So our advice to you is probably not movies on date number one, but you can try some of those interesting ideas, like where you're going to be way more active and not physically active, but more active in conversation, you know, whether it's doing some kind of gym exercise, going outside for a hike or a walk.
Yeah. And if you are intentional, you know, like write those prompts down, or just have a notes section in your phone. You know, if you're going throughout your day and you hear a question that somebody asked or a good point that somebody said that you would like to find out in your significant other, like have that in your notes app and just like start writing down these different prompts, you know? And when you do have them face to face, it's more like deeper questions rather than just superficial interview questions. They're more, you know, like what do you value in your life?
Right.
Like,
They're
how
more
can
meaningful
you-
to you and the other person because they might even, tell you like, wow, no one's ever asked me that before. Or,
Right.
And I feel like when you get those kinds of questions, those matter. Like when people ask me questions that I don't typically get asked, or it doesn't feel like a question,
Mhm.
I feel like that can lead to a more genuine connection, considering like, oh, I don't feel like this is like a straight up interview, or, you're
Mhm.
asking questions that have deeper meaning and that translate into a better answer, right? Instead of just like a one word, a one sentence, right?
Mhm.
Depending on the type of question or how you ask it, I can, fully elaborate, or I can, just give you a better answer in general.
Yeah.
And I feel like that makes a difference to me in any kind of dating stuff. So if you're not satisfied with the way Gen Z dates and you're just totally not into that, or you want to put a pause on that, we offer here at the Dating Dog, we do offer matchmaking. So if that is something that you guys are into, it's free to sign up for the matchmaking database, right? And then you can go from there. So being part of the actual database helps the people that we already have in our system to have a better pool of people based on what your match is or what we can tailor as best as possible. Alrighty, we're gonna leave this up a little bit for some Q&A, but we definitely gave you a lot to think about and a lot to say about Gen Z.
Mhm.
So, you might feel one way or the other. You might feel like, wow, this is the generation I want to be at. Or maybe you have a different thought process on like, or maybe I don't want to date as young as I thought. Not saying that we're
Yeah.
like super, super young, like we're not 18-year-olds, but but I feel like that's what sometimes when people think like the way you guys act, it's like I might as well be dating like preteen 18-year-old as kind of mind, and it's like, okay, well, we're not necessarily like there, right? We're older than that. So we've been through different life experiences, so we have more to give, and we also have learned from everything that we talked about at the beginning, right? Where there was lack of communication, fear of commitment, like she was saying, she's very upfront right away, or you want to make that known. And that's important. Sometimes people stray away from that. They don't always want to say like, this is what I'm into, or they just kind of want to be along for the ride.
Mm.
And usually 9 times out of 10, the person that's along for the ride is not the one who's going to get hurt. It's going to be the other person. That's usually what's going to happen. And the person that's just along for the ride is going to be like, there's not going to be heartbreak involved. They're not going to feel bad about what happens, regardless of how it ends down. So just a reminder, we do have our Eventbrite. You can scan up at the top. Thank you guys so much for joining and watching us today. It was great to have you back. Thank you for joining and making
Shout
time.
out. I have to say a shout out to my friend Chris, who's watching right now.
Oh my gosh. Thank you
What's
so
up,
much
homie?
for watching. This has been super fun. We'll definitely post some clips of this later. You can watch the stream later that you got to miss on YouTube. Okay. So thank you guys so